This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Friday, Winnipeg Sports Talk. What's up, everybody? The long weekend is just about here. Welcome to the program. We've got a ton to get to today. Jets finishing up the preseason tonight in Calgary. Bombers hosting the Elks. Massive result for a Canadians men's national team last night on the pitch down in Mexico City. And of course, the Major League Baseball playoffs going. We got a packed show as far as guests as well. Obviously, all fired up for this game tonight down at IG Field between the Bombers and the Elks. Ed Tait of BlueBombers.com is going to join us to tee up tonight's matchup of the first place Blue and Gold and the last place Elks coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Afterwards, our guy Ken Wiebe, Wiebe's World, returns to the program. We'll get his thoughts on what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets heading into the preseason finale. A bit of a look ahead to next week's opening game in Anaheim, as well as tee up the return of Kenny and Rennie, which will be live right after Winnipeg Sports Talk over on the Kenny and Rennie YouTube channel. And then after Ken, Andy MacNeil from VSiN, the digital gambler, is going to join us. Andy's got his full NHL season preview out. We'll find out what he thinks about the Winnipeg Jets, where the value is on the board, and maybe some thoughts on some player props, as well as some tips that might help you in your fantasy pool or hockey pool heading into next week. As always, we're brought to you by our great family of sponsors, including our newest sponsor, Culligan Water. Great to have the Culligan folks on board. Stay tuned. Got a great offer we'll tell you about for the next week from our friends at Culligan. Manitoba Battery, the gang over at Royal Sports. Might want to stop in at Royal before the game tonight. Great selection of Blue Bomber gear down at Royal Sports on Pembina Highway. Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Not Autocorp, Canadian Club, the Nick and Nikki DQ Group, and of course our betting partner at CoolBet Canada. It is Friday, folks. So if you're with us on YouTube, make sure you stick around to the end of the program, because we will be doing another marble race for our friends at Canadian Club. And we've doubled up the prizing. I mentioned we've got the new Winnipeg Sports Talk CC hoodies. We'll give away our first one of those. We'll also have an Isle of Rye package. And breaking news, our pal Brian Munz has also given us a pair of tickets for tomorrow's ice game at the Ice Cave. So we've got some great prizes for the marble race at the end of the program, so make sure you stick around to the end. For everyone that's with us right now, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up, and if you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button and join us daily, Monday to Friday, here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Let's get Remis in here to get the show going. What's going on? Long weekend, just about here. I'm feeling good, fired up for this game. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, when you say this game, Huss, which game? This is one of those rare occasions, it's like a holiday, where you have a Jets game and a Bombers game at the same time. So, I don't know, I might have to bring my radio to the Jets game, or I guess I could just watch it on my phone. I do have one of those little portable radios, but I'm fired up for it. I'll be at the Bomber game. I got tickets. I'm looking forward to hopefully being dry. I mean, I'm going either way, but I have had my eye on the forecast, but that should be good. And the Jets preseason finale, where no Wheeler, no Morrissey, Ville Heinola doing the power play, and Cole Perfetti back in there on line 3. We can get into that after, but fired up. Long weekend as well. You got your pumpkin pie ready or what?
Yeah, no, I don't actually.
Not ready for
I'm
pumpkin
not really
pie?
a pumpkin pie guy, to be honest. I love a lot of things about Thanksgiving, turkey, stuffing, all that stuff. Never really a pumpkin pie guy, and don't even get me going on the pumpkin spice lattes and all that stuff. We should focus on what really makes this season what it is, and that's Halloween candy. That's what I'm in on. And we're countdown to Halloween. the next few weeks, parties and whatnot. But yeah, I'm in on Halloween candy, not as much on pumpkin pies. Debate in the chat your favorite things about Thanksgiving and your favorite thing to eat. You mentioned the weather for the game tonight. Let's get a quick update from Environment Canada. Today says a risk of a thunderstorm near noon. That's around now. Hazy. It was a smoke warning last night. I guess that's dissipated a little bit. But tonight, partly cloudy. Fog patches developing overnight. Wind north 20, becoming light early this evening. No worries. Should be a great night for football. Although, man, it sure would have been nice if we could have just squeezed one more day out of this glorious week that we've had for a home game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But as I mentioned, Ed Tait's going to join us. We'll get to the Bombers coming up. You did mention the Winnipeg Jets, Remo, who are playing tonight, final preseason game, and going to be a bit of an interesting look. 11 forwards and 7 defensemen tonight. And as you mentioned, Morrissey and Wheeler getting the night off. Top line's going to look like Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Jansen Harkins gets the spot in Wheeler's place. And Cole Perfetti's going to skate with Adam Lowry and Paul Stastny, leaving the Ehlers-Dubois-Kopp combo intact as line number 2.
Yes, and actually for the Flames, has Blake Coleman won't be playing. He got suspended yesterday for the illegal hit to Jansen Harkins. But yeah, and Harkins, he's on the top line, right wing. He's definitely elevated his play here in the preseason. You know, I think he had an injury last year, you know, couldn't really get comfortable and just wasn't the player he was 2 years ago last year, but he's looking pretty good so far in the preseason. This Kopp Dubois Ehlers line looking to roll again. And Cole Perfetti on the third line with Paul Stastny and Adam Lowry. Let's see, we all expect him. I'm pretty sure he's going to start in the AHL. I thought maybe they'd throw him a bone and give him game 1. I mean, it could still happen. We don't know, but it seems like last night's lineup was the opening day dress rehearsal without Mark Scheifele. Logan Stanley, we were worried about him, Huss. You know, they took him out of the other preseason game, not the last one, but the one before. Said it was precautionary, but then yesterday he had the non-contact jersey. So I was like, you know, is this one of these things where Paul Maurice says it's a minor injury, he's day-to-day for the whole season? I mean, it's happened before, but there he was on the ice. They are going with 7D, and they'll mix and match Dylan Pionk, Bolio Schmidt, Heinola, DeMello, and I guess Stanley. I'm just going by Ken Wiebe tweeting out the lines. Heinola will be on the second power play with Ehlers, Schmidt, Kopp, and Stastny instead of Morrissey. And that top line, well, I guess Ken had Wheeler in there, but I would think Harkins maybe goes into that spot. I'm not sure. I was just going by Ken's lines. We can get it. We'll hear from Ken.
Yeah, Wheeler can't be on PP1 if he's not playing in the game. Someone else is going to get in that spot.
I copied and pasted Ken's power play lines. He had Wheeler, but Wheeler is not playing. So yes, that would not be accurate.
Wow, talk about throwing somebody under the bus.
Hold on,
just blaming Ken.
I just copied and pasted his thing. Let me just confirm. He did a great job though, giving the updates on today's skate though.
Yes, he did, and we'll talk about it more with Ken coming up. But what's interesting, and we'll see. I mean, 7 defensemen. They'll move Ville Heinola in at times. You'll see Logan Stanley play with Dylan DeMello. May even see Heinola and Stanley potentially get some shifts up in the top 4 with some different looks. I think Paul Maurice just wants to see how things go because you never know what's going to happen throughout a long season for the Winnipeg Jets with injuries and whatnot. As far as the Flames go, Johnny Gaudreau's going to be back in the lineup. Sean Monahan, and Elias Lindholm will be that top line. Dubé, Backlund, Mangiapane, Milan Lucic, Byron Froese, and Walker Duehr, the third line, and Justin Kirkland, Glenn Godden, and Brent Ritchie, the fourth line. The Flames didn't do a lot in the offseason. They lost Mark Giordano. They signed Blake Coleman. Everything else was just turning this team more into a Daryl Sutter type team. And there won't be any Matthew Tkachuk tonight and no Blake Coleman. But this team is going to be tough to play against. I just don't know how much they're going to be able to score. And of course, the other crazy thing about the Flames this year, Reem, Johnny Gaudreau is a pending unrestricted free agent. And it doesn't sound like they've made a lot of progress in getting him inked. So that's going to be another story that sort of hangs around Calgary, especially if the Flames don't get off to a good start and look to potentially be, the team that they were last year, which was one of the most disappointing in the NHL.
Yeah, Flames, again, I was a guy who played them on fantasy DraftKings repeatedly and was disappointed by Gaudreau and Monahan repeatedly. I think Monahan may not have been at full health last year, and he seems to be that way this year. Gaudreau, that's something we're going to be watching. I mean, depending on how the team goes, would he be a name that's moved before the deadline? Or I don't think they're going to reach an extension with Johnny Gaudreau, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, these guys have been very good. They've carried this team to playoffs in the past. Thankfully, for any team in the Pacific, that division is so poor, you have a shot at the playoffs. So, as down as I am on Calgary, because I feel like it's very similar to last year's team, which disappointed, they could have a shot. And we'll get a look at Jacob Markstrom in goal. Let's see if he can replicate what Dan Vladar did the other night at Canada Life Center. He was spectacular, stoning the Jets, who outchanced Calgary, but I mean, he kept Calgary in it. So it was actually, as far as preseason games go, that was one of the more entertaining ones I can recall.
I agree.
From the show Nikolai Ehlers put on, passing the puck, shooting, scoring, and Dan Vladar keeping the team in it. Otherwise, it would have been a serious beatdown.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how this looks on the other side of things. I mean, Calgary hasn't been very good. I think they've got a lot to prove this year. And, just from what we've seen in this lineup the last couple of games, I think there's still a lot up in the air as to who's going to be in Daryl Sutter's lineup, how this team's going to look, and how they're going to get better this season. But again, our focus is in on the Winnipeg Jets side of things, and that's what we'll focus in on with Ken Wiebe a little bit later on. Before we get to Ed, though, and tonight's Bomber game, Remo, I do want to talk soccer, and I know that's not something we normally do, but last night, a historic result for Canada's men's national team. And by the way, shout out to everyone that was around at the end of the show when I said, hey, we've been on a bit of a heater. Let's get on the draw between Canada and Mexico at plus 285. Boom, they did it. Jonathan Osorio scoring for Canada, equalizing at the end of the first half. Canada holds on for a 1-1 draw. Another point, they move into second in CONCACAF in the World Cup qualifying. And to put this into perspective, how big of a match, how big of a result this is for Canada, in their last 5 meetings at Azteca Stadium before tonight, they were outscored 20-0. And in the current qualifying format, it is the first time ever that any team in CONCACAF has gotten a point on the road at the United States and a point on the road at Mexico in the same qualifying. I'm telling you, there is a wave rising right now for this Canadian men's national team. Get on board right now and get in. They're hosting games in Edmonton in November. Mexico coming. Can't remember the other team that's coming, playing outdoors at Commonwealth Stadium in November. Canada's pulling out all the stops. And I'll tell you what right now, Remo, if you had to make me bet one way or the other, I think Canada's going to qualify for the World Cup for the first time since the 80s. There's still a lot of work to be done, but the talent we have on this team, Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Osorio, I think the time is now for Canada to get into the mix on the world stage, led by these young Canadian stars.
Yeah, Canada Soccer, get excited about it. It's actually on real television, Huss, not to some streaming channel that nobody has. I saw like 150,000 people watch it on Sportsnet 360 yesterday, but I think the buzz is starting to grow. I mean, we've heard about Alphonso Davies for a while, but I know there's a number of young players. Did everyone in Mexico behave at the game yesterday?
No. You know what? The Mexican fans are the worst. The absolute worst. I mean, a few years back, they were throwing bags of piss at Landon Donovan as he tried to make a corner kick. And then last night, first of all, they shouldn't have even had fans in the building last night. Mexico was reprimanded by FIFA for their fans making homophobic slurs and chants. They lost the opportunity to have fans for 2 games. FIFA reduced it to 1 so they could fill the stadium last night. And what happens? 59th minute, they have to stop the game because of homophobic slants and cheers.
Wow.
It's disgraceful. And I mean, listen, I understand that different countries or different cultures, but it is not acceptable. And FIFA, as a global entity, has done everything they can to remove racism from the game and exactly this sort of thing. And it was we'll focus in on the good from last night, and that was a historic result for our Canadians men's national team, a massive point, and more excitement about their prospects for being in the World Cup. But what the Mexican fans, year after year after year, continue to embarrass themselves. And it was just another black mark on the sport in CONCACAF, some of the things that happen outside of certainly our borders. And, you wonder what will happen going forward. I would imagine there'll be some more empty stadiums for Mexico's games. And that home advantage for Mexico is significant. And it might not be there for some matches that they may need it a little later on in qualifying.
Wow. It's amazing how this that kind of stuff keeps happening. We don't want to take away from the draw, but I mean, I don't know what you have to do. You do have to ban fans, but it's crazy. You think that, we're kind of past that, but apparently not. But moving on. So I saw people tweeting us. Are you planning on going to soccer game in November in Edmonton?
You know what? Believe me, I've already been looking at flights. I've tried to figure out how I could do the show. It would be so cool.
Go to Dusty's got a studio. You can do it from Dusty's basement.
Trust me. I might be trying to work out something exactly like that. Because, I would love to see first and foremost our women's team play. And I know they're playing a couple games, a celebration tour. I think they're playing New Zealand in friendlies. These games are, though, incredibly important. I mean, our team is on the cusp of doing something that hasn't been done in many of our lifetimes. I believe the last time they qualified for the World Cup was in the early 80s, 84, 86, something like that. So I'm in on it. And when just like 20 years ago, but working for the Oilers while I was there in Edmonton, I realized they have an incredible history of supporting our national team. And the great thing about games in Edmonton is people actually cheer for Canada. It's not like, you have a game against El Salvador in Toronto and 60% of the fans are cheering for El Salvador or Honduras or one of these countries. Edmonton is all in on Team Canada. And I actually did get to see a match between Trinidad and Tobago and Canada. At the time, Dwight York was a big star for Trinidad and was playing, I want to say, for Man U or Manchester, I believe. So anyways, it was cool to see that. But, at that point, it was more the novelty of going to an international soccer game, and this is our team. This is different now. I mean, the stakes are high, and it's realistic that Canada could be in the World Cup. So, yeah, the dates are the 12th and 16th of November in Edmonton. Cannot wait to see what the conditions are like for that. But if you are a fan, if you have any ability to get out there, I would certainly recommend doing it. And I am absolutely looking into it. Normally, that's a time we might be going out there for a Grey Cup. Well, this year, it could very well be to talk about a World Cup qualifying spot for Canada's men's national team. All right, we're going to get to the Bombers coming up with Eddie Tait. And then Ken Wiebe, Wiebe's World, will join us for the latest on the Jets. And don't forget Andy MacNeil from VSiN a little later on with a bit of a NHL preview from a gambling, betting, and fantasy perspective. So looking forward to having Andy on the program. And before the end of the program, massive marble race, our first hoodie, our first I Love Rye package, and a pair of ice tickets, all ready to go for those of you hanging out with us on a Friday afternoon here on YouTube. All right. Do want to thank a couple of our sponsors right off the bat. I mentioned Culligan, our newest sponsor. It is so great to have them on board. And guess what? We've got a brand new, little special offer for WST folks. They're over at 1200 Sergeant Avenue. You can hit them up at 694-5180. Find out more about them online at drinkculligan.com. Family owned, celebrating 65 years here in Manitoba, being the go-to people for water for businesses and families alike. Water softeners, filters, whole home systems, drinking water systems, bottled water coolers and bottle-free coolers, not to mention water delivery services and water products and solutions for commercial industries as well. Right now, though, up until next Friday, new promo for you WSTers. Rent any household equipment, water softeners, drinking water systems, for only $9.99 a month for the first 3 months. So any household equipment, as I said, the water softeners, drinking water systems, just $9.99 a month for the first 3 months. Give them a call, ask for details, and you can call them at 694-5180. Again, it's 1200 Sergeant, or online at drinkculligan.com. Now, I mentioned a little earlier, you might want to be stopping over at Royal Sports to grab some more Bomber gear before the game tonight. Incredible selection of Jets gear, NFL, they've got it all. But I did just get a message over from Greg and Gerald at Royal they are doing a fundraiser for Cancer Care Manitoba. It's the Ride Inside, the Wheel with Wheeler, and the Blake Wheeler signature ball cap collection is now available at Royal Sports. I know we've all seen it a million times. The wheel hat, and then he's got the backward BF logo, the Biggie Funk. They've got a number of different versions, all done, I believe, by New Era. Great quality hat. So all those are there, and 100% of the proceeds from the ball caps go to the Cancer Care Foundation. So really cool to see what Jets captain Blake Wheeler is doing with cancer care. Awesome that Royal Sports is the go-to place to help get those hats out. They were a big help when we launched ours. So pop down, grab one of those things, support cancer care. It's at Royal Sports, supporting the Blake Wheeler signature ball cap collection right now at 750 Pembina Highway. And shout out to our friends over at Manitoba Battery. It does look like we're getting out of this summer weather into fall, and we'll probably have a few days of fall and winter will be here. Don't be the guy that waits till it's minus 30 to figure out that you need a new battery. Do it now. Get proactive. And Donnie and the guys have your hookup. Not only will they give you the best price on a battery in town, but they'll deliver it to you citywide. You can find out more, 1026 Logan. Phone them at 783-8787 or go online at manitobabattery.com. Fill you in on everything they have, but essentially batteries. If it has power, if it needs a battery, they've got one for you, including Metachair, sleds, Sea-Doos, quads, power sports, industrial, and of course, automotive. Might see the guys down at the Bomber game tonight. I know they're big supporters of the blue and gold, but most importantly, they're getting you charged for the winter over at Manitoba Battery. All right, speaking of being charged up, I certainly am, and you know the home team will be tonight when the first place Bombers welcome in the Edmonton Elks. Let's get ready for tonight's game with Ed Tait of BlueBombers.com. Eddie, what's going on? How are you?
Fantastic, Huss. How are you, man?
I am well. Looking forward to a long weekend, and what better way to kick off a long weekend than with a first-place football team coming back to play at IG Field. Hey, listen, before we get to the game, everything's been going so well for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but the week did start in a somewhat unfortunate way. Kenny Lawler, obviously coming off that career game, suspended with the DUI. It did seem like the team got out in front of it, and certainly Kenny owned it going forward. But Ed, how is this an issue at all with the team, or is this a matter of a team that is supporting a teammate but knows that the job at hand is to go out and win a football game, and that won't really be at all an issue, or hasn't been an issue around the club this week?
Well, I mean, look, there's no running away from it, right? I think that you're right. The team and Kenny did do a good job of getting in front of it early in the week so that it didn't become a distraction as the week progressed. He admitted it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Whether it will be a distraction, we'll find out tonight, because you're taking the leading receiver in the CFL out of your lineup. And if they can't move the ball through the air, then maybe we'll look back and say that, yeah, it was a distraction or it was a problem. But, it hasn't really come up on the last couple of days. I think what teams do in this circumstance is if you do get ahead of it and you don't ignore it, he addressed it with the team. He was pretty emotional from what I understand. Got a lot of hugs and support from his teammates. And, he also got some people saying, hey, don't be so dumb next time. And if you need a ride, someone will be there, or you can catch an Uber or whatever. Again, it's kind of been put to the side heading in tonight, but we'll see what happens tonight, whether they can still move the ball through the air and some other guys step up, including Kelvin McKnight, who steps in for Kenny Lawler.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Kelvin McKnight, because, I mean, I'll be honest, I was listening to the coach's show as well, and I know Knuckles was asking, Mike about Naaman Roosevelt, and, at the time, the news wasn't out, and he said, well, if there's an opportunity that comes up, he's probably a guy that gets an opportunity, but yet it's Kelvin McKnight, and that's not a household name right now amongst many Bomber fans, although he has been in the lineup earlier this year. Tell us a little bit about this young man, and maybe were you surprised that he got the nod ahead of an established veteran like Roosevelt that's still waiting for a crack in the Bomber lineup?
Yeah, it's been kind of an interesting storyline all week, because people assumed that it would be Naaman Roosevelt based on his resume, right? A couple thousand yards in his career, longtime pro in this league, and then had some time in the NFL too. Kelvin McKnight is a guy that Zach Collaros pointed out early in training camp as someone that got into the playbook right away, knew what he was supposed to do. from what I understand, Buck Pierce's offense is pretty complicated, and receivers don't line up in the same spot for every play. They move around, and so you need to know every spot across the receiving core. And Calvin McKnight, to his credit, did know that right from the beginning. I'll be honest, I was a bit surprised too, because I think we were all looking at the depth chart and assuming that a guy, again, with 2,000 yard seasons to his credit, would be next up. But it does say something about Calvin McKnight, a guy that played at Samford University. He's been with the Denver Broncos on their practice roster for a couple of years, so it's not like he's a raw rookie. I think he did start earlier in the year. He had 3 starts and had 10 catches for 71 yards, so that doesn't blow anybody away, right? But when you get an endorsement from the quarterback and you get an endorsement from the offensive coordinator and the team is 7-1, I mean, all you can do is say, okay, let's see what he can do. You know, it's hard to second guess when a team is rolling like this.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, from the outside looking in, I think it's a good sign for the football team that you've got players like this that, you know, have obviously earned the opportunity. And, you know, when you have a generally healthy football team that's winning the way it is, I mean, sometimes you have to be patient. You have to sit back. But I think what's important in the coach's eyes, and I think it's reflected in this decision, Ed, is that, you know, you make your opportunities every day on the practice field. And, you know, listen, having a great resume is one thing. To come in like a guy like Roosevelt, no one will take him away. That's probably a big reason why they signed him. But it's pretty clear, at least to me, that what McKnight's been doing each and every day under the guise of Buck Pierce and Mike O'Shea in practice has earned him this shot in the absence of Kenny Lawler.
Yeah, so let's remember that the season started on August 5th. Training camp started July 10th. So Calvin McKnight's been with this team since early July. Naaman Roosevelt arrived at the end of August, and I wonder if that's a factor too. So as much as he's accomplished and done an awful lot, Calvin McKnight had a jump on him in terms of understanding the playbook and developing a rapport with Zach Collaros, who did play with Roosevelt in Saskatchewan. We shouldn't forget that. It is interesting. Look, to his credit, Naaman Roosevelt's handled it very well, and he's still going to keep fighting. What will be interesting is what happens if Calvin McKnight goes off tonight, right, and has an awesome game. Then you've got Kenny Lawler coming back next week after his 1-game suspension. It's like, as you said, Huss, it's an awful lot of options to have at the receiving core, and it's a kind of a luxury when you're rolling along at 7-1.
Well, and all those options are there for the guy behind center, and that's Zach Collaros. You know, we came into the program on Monday, Ed, and I think probably about one full hour of the 2 hours was just gushing about that game, the performance, really all around. I mean, defense, offense, special teams. It was a masterpiece. But 400 yards of offense or of passing from Zach Collaros, really a signature game for him, and one of the most impressive wins for the team I can remember in a long, long time. The offense was already going very well, quite efficiently, but it seems like Zach last week maybe took another step. I mean, what have you seen from the Bomber quarterback and just his level of confidence, familiarity, and chemistry now? I mean, it's easy to remember that he only had 4 games with this club before this season started.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? He's 11-1 now as a starter, if you include the playoffs in the end of 2019. I mean, it's remarkable the kind of run he's on. But I agree with you. In the last little while, it's like he has found another gear, or he's more comfortable in this offense. I was just writing it down before I came on with you guys to remind myself. In his last 3 games, he's completing 82.3% of his passes, which is phenomenal. He's thrown 5 touchdowns against 1 interception. Like, he's taken over the league lead in passing yardage. He's second in passing touchdowns. But what we saw last week in Vancouver was different, right? He moved around the pocket so well. He had great protection up front. He put the ball into places for Kenny Lawler to finish with over 200 yards. It's impressive. It will be interesting to see what Edmonton tries to do to combat that. Remember that game in Edmonton a couple of weeks ago? The Bombers rolled to that early start, and we thought, okay, this is going to be a butt kicking. And ultimately, they won by 15, but the offense kind of got stagnated after a couple of drives early, and that's a credit to what Edmonton did as much as anything. So we'll see what Edmonton does tonight. They got a good defensive line. They get Matthew Betts back, a defensive end who can really come after you. And, it's always interesting when you see a team for the second time around, what they try to do in the chess match stuff to combat what happened in the first game.
You know, it's funny you talk about Caleros being on top of the passing yardage. I mean, it was either on the Lock Shop or on this show. We were looking at some of the CFL prop bets going into the season. And, you know, they had all the quarterbacks listed. And Zach Caleros was at the bottom. He was 13-1 to lead the league in passing. So that was an auto bet, Ed. We got in on that. But the funny thing about it is, I mean, you see the way this offense is going and they're playing so well and he's on the top. My biggest concern is they're going to ice the West with 3 games left and then not have him play the last few games. That obviously is something they'll worry about it when it happens. It's about playing in this game tonight. But speaking of quarterbacks, the Elks do get Trevor Harris back, and that's a big, big boost for a team that, listen, Taylor Cornelius was not bad. I mean, certainly for a guy coming in, starting off, you don't really know what to expect. He was okay, although, a couple mistakes by a rookie really did cost him in that game earlier. But it is stunning that the Elks are where they are in the standings when you consider some of the talent that they have on this team, especially the guy behind center.
Yeah, if you go back to the beginning of the year and all the preseason predictions that were coming out, I remember the TSN crew threw their predictions up, and almost, well, I'm going to say 3/4 of them picked the Elks to win the West and to be in the Grey Cup against Hamilton. It's a very talented team. I'm looking at their depth chart now. You look at Darrell Walker, James Ellingson. It's really good receivers. You got James Wilder Jr. as running back. There's good people on defense. But it's been kind of a, off the field too. There's been a bit of a tire fire for them for a long time. But in terms of getting Trevor Harris back, I mean, look, it's a boost. Taylor Cornelius showed some things, but he's still a rookie. The Bombers defensive guys have talked about it all week about, how quickly the ball comes out of Trevor Harris's hands because he's seen everything that a defense can throw at him. The interesting thing about him, he said he always puts up good numbers against Winnipeg, but he doesn't always win the games. He's 2-4 against Winnipeg in his career. And in 2019, Winnipeg beat Edmonton twice, but Harris still threw for 710 yards in those 2 games and had 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and yet Edmonton lost both games. So there's just something about him. We saw earlier in the year, Almondo Sewell got after him in the media saying that he can crumble when you bring pressure. He certainly had a frustrating year with the injuries and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bombers do tonight. Do you blitz them the same way you did Taylor Cornelius, or do you try to confuse them, or all of the above? The Bombers defense has been pretty good, but they're going to have a different test tonight with Harris behind center.
Speaking of the Bomber defense, this is maybe an impossible question to answer, but let's just say that someone said to you, Ed, we need you to identify the most outstanding defensive player on the Bombers this year. I could give you a laundry list of guys that are in contention for it, but as I said, it's almost an impossible question because I don't know how you separate the guys up front, Big Hill, Brandon Alexander. The newcomers in the secondary. It has been, I'll put it this way, there's a lot of contenders for who stand out, and good luck trying to pick a defensive MVP this year.
Yeah, it's a real good question. I was watching practice the other day with Bob Irving. You mentioned Knuckles a little bit earlier. And we were talking about that. We were saying, how many guys from the Bombers defense are going to be on the West Division All-Star team or the CFL All-Star team, right? Because these numbers are historic. So that's one debate. And then what you're talking about is a really good point because everybody points to Willie Jefferson. Jackson Jeffcoat's having a hell of a year. So is Adam Bighill. You mentioned Brandon Alexander. He probably won't be the Bombers' defensive MOP because of the publicity the other guys get. But that's a sneaky pick in my mind because he's the quarterback of a secondary that's been completely made over back there. They lost Mercy Masson. Winston Rose is gone. Marcus Sales is gone. You get 2 rookies in there. They had all those changes at the dime back, and it's been Brandon Alexander that's been the constant at safety. So that's a sneaky pick there too. It's going to be interesting to see what the voters do this year. In a lot of ways, it's always been a stats thing, who has the most sacks, who has the most interceptions. But you could make a case right now that it's between those 4 guys that you mentioned, Jefferson, Jeffcoat, Big Hill, and Alexander. And if I had a vote, I don't have a vote anymore, I might lean to Jackson Jeffcoat right now. But boy, oh boy, with with whatever, they're 7-1. So again, I'm not great at math. However many games there are left.
That'd be 6, Ed. That'd be
Thank
6.
you. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I hate to be wrong on the math, the basic math, because little kids will laugh at me. But anyway, 6 games left in the season. Who's to say what kind of numbers or big plays that Willie Jefferson might make too to get back up there? But here's one. 2018, most outstanding defensive player in the CFL was Adam Bighill. 2019, it's Willie Jefferson. The way it's going this year, it'll be a Bomber. I'd have to go back and look to see the last time one team had 3 defensive MOPs in a row.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, it's a fun sports talk topic for us to get up to and, compare individual players, but it's a team sport, and this team unit is historically good right now, Ed. And I mean, holding Mike Riley and the BC Lions to under 200 yards of offense at home, under 10 points, another single-digit turnabout. I mean, we're now at a stage where it is completely legitimate to compare this Bomber defense to some of the greatest ever in Bomber history, and I'd imagine probably CFL history as well. They do have the opportunity to do something very, very special. It won't mean as much if they don't get a Grey Cup at the end, but the way they're trending, I mean, everything is going about as well as possible for Richie Hall's unit, who also, by the way, probably deserves quite a bit of credit. A guy that was much maligned at times, doesn't get a lot of talk, but he probably likes it that way. Focus on the players that are getting the job done every week.
Yeah, there's a lot to chew on, isn't there, when you look at the defense? The number that jumps out the most to me is that they've given up 6 points in the fourth quarter this year, not last week, this year. They've outscored teams 68-6 in the fourth quarter. That's remarkable. And so when you start talking about the historic numbers, Huss, they're right in there with those kind of numbers put you in teams from the 50s and 60s. And then, this league is known for its scoring and high-powered offenses. So to be compared to those kind of units is pretty special. I don't think it's coincidence. That's funny that tonight the 1990 team is being honored here because it's 90s night. And that 90 team has as good a defense as I've ever seen. And this defense is right there with it. That 90 team, the one number that they had that I don't think will ever be broken, they had 48 interceptions that year as a defense, which nobody's even come close to that. That's a remarkable number. But
didn't Rod Hill get 5 in a game?
He had 5 in a game. That season, Les Brown had the 2 corners. Les Brown had 14 interceptions. Rod Hill had 12. So the 2 corners had 26 interceptions combined. If you go back and look, there's teams that haven't had that many in the last few years. So it's interesting that they're getting honored tonight because this defense is every bit as good as it so far.
Yeah, 90s night, celebrating that 90s Grey Cup championship. And it just means so much more celebrating the 1990 championship, knowing that wasn't the last time that we had a championship here in Winnipeg.
It's a great point. I don't know, like let's salute them. They're awesome. But, if the Bombers hadn't won in 2019 and you trot those guys out tonight, everybody's going to be saying, look at it's been this many years and look how old those guys look. It's been that long since we won. So you're right. It feels a lot better around here to be honoring them after a Grey Cup win.
Eddie, we talked a lot about the offense and the defense. How's the special teams looking coming in? And just a little thought on a big confidence-building performance for Hakuna Matata last week in BC.
Yeah. Well, look, I thought that even though the numbers might not be there, I think Janarian Grant gave them a boost on the return game. I think he's close to busting one. That would be a bonus. Their kick coverage units have always been good. But you're right. Everybody's looking at the kicking game. And Ali Murtada, after struggling in Edmonton, made all his kicks last week. Now, they weren't long range and they were in a dome. So that'll be interesting because if it's raining tonight and as it starts to get colder down the stretch here, if the division final is here on December 5th, the kicking conditions will be a lot different then than they are right now. So he's got to get on a roll. He's got to hit a 40-yarder or a 45-yarder to get the confidence of this team and go on a run. Because that's still a question mark for me. As much as he took some of the pressure off himself last week, it's still something that when you look at this team, it's something that people might still circle, in red and say, not sure about that.
Ed, the Bombers are a clear number 1 right now. Gun to your head, who's the second best team in the CFL right now entering week 9?
Ooh, that's a good question. Tough to get a read on the Argos, even though they've got a good record because they beat up on a rookie quarterback, and it was Ottawa the other night. I mean, the Argos, they're the only team that beat Winnipeg. They're big at the line of scrimmage, on the defensive line, especially. Gave the Bombers some trouble. I think Hamilton's, it's interesting. You know, they've got Mazzoli back. This isn't the same team that went 15-3 in 2019, but they're still really good. I don't know. Maybe it's Saskatchewan. They've had their struggles in the last little while. It's a real good point. I know Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press wrote about this earlier in the week, and so did Ted Wyman. You know, it's like the Bombers are way up here, and then next is a group around way down here, right? And so it's a good question. I don't know who would come out of the East, and I know that in the West, if the Bombers can secure first, it's like same with every year. You hope that whoever's playing in that West semifinal beats the snot out of each other and rolls into here, you know, with the bandages all over themselves and aren't 100% healthy.
You know, it's kind of funny. I mean, we had some fun after the opening game of the season where we put out a little Winnipeg Sports Talk power poll. It was number 1, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and then 2 to 8, everybody else. And that hasn't really changed, Ed, for the entire season right now. But I imagine you're around the team every day. Pretty clear when you hear Mike O'Shea. The fact that they've had this sort of success is great. They've done what they wanted to do so far this season, but still pretty business-like approach to everything that the Bombers are doing. And you probably wouldn't know that this is a 7-1 team by what they're doing on the practice field and the way they're approaching this matchup as a heavy favorite tonight.
Look, I think everybody that knows Mike O'Shea or has seen him working since he got here knows that if this team takes its foot off the gas pedal at all, he's going to be in their ear barking, and they'll have the hardest practice they've ever had the next day, right? Because they always talk about going 1-0 every week, and so in that respect, everybody's got the blinders on, right? It's just about tonight against Edmonton. But Mike's got a real good gift as a coach, and maybe it's because from his playing days he's been through it all, of kind of taking a step back and surveying the whole landscape. And if he sees something that doesn't feel right, where, you know, guys are soft or, you know, showing up late or, you know, whatever, then the wrath of God will come down. The wrath of Mike will come down on this team to get it back right again. And so you brought up a good point earlier. What happens if the Bombers clinch? What do they do in those last few games? Does Zach Collaros get a rest? I don't know. I don't know what they will do because Mike wants to keep this team sharp. And I don't think he believes in resting guys unless they're hurt and you know, you're trying to save somebody. I always come back to 2001, and I was just going to bring that up. So that team was rolling along at 12, had won 12 in a row, was 14-2, rested some people. Calgary wins in the last game to get into the playoffs, and then beats the Bombers. An 8-10 team beats a 14-4 team a couple weeks later. If that's not the warning sign for everybody in this building, and you know, I know a lot of people haven't lived it, but if you need a reminder, it's right there in hard evidence from 2001.
Eddie, thanks so much for doing this. What do fans need to know about the game tonight? I'm sure tailgate area will be open beforehand. What about this celebration for the 90s team? Is that a halftime event?
No, there's going to be a pregame video from what I understand, and a bunch of the guys are here. The really cool thing is they're going to, both Edmonton and Winnipeg will wear those orange jerseys in the warm-up. Those will be auctioned off after the game. And if you haven't had a chance, go to our Twitter feed to check out. The Bombers are wearing a different W on their helmet tonight to support the Orange Shirt Day and Indigenous peoples. It's a really cool logo that they'll wear on their helmet for tonight's game.
Yeah, you can see it on the Bomber Twitter avatar as well. They've moved that in. Ed, looking forward to this game tonight and more chats with you about a first-place club steamrolling towards the postseason. Thanks so much for doing this, and have a great, happy Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, you too, Huss. Appreciate you having me on. Go Bombers.
Good stuff. There he is, Ed Tait, 7:30 tonight, IG Field, Bombers and Elks. A little celebration of the 1990 Grey Cup champions. And yes, as we mentioned with Ed, far more palatable for Bomber fans to celebrate that 1990 team on 90s night, having won in 2019 as opposed to a 31-year drought. And I'll tell you what, it ain't going to be 29 years before this team wins again. It's probably Well, the way it's trending right now, it might just be a few months because the Bombers are looking as good as any team right now in the Canadian Football League. And it's tough really to identify who the number 2 team in the league is. Hey, big thanks to Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's so great to have Princess Auto on board. This is a family-made business here in Winnipeg that is national, countrywide. 2 locations here in Winnipeg, though, and huge supporters of many things in our community, especially curling. Proud sponsors of the Mike McEwen team. The Jen Jones rink will be following both the McEwen and Jones rink and all the Manitobans as everyone tries to become Canada's Olympic representative next month in Saskatoon. And in the meantime, for those of you that, like projects, like to get down to work, you'll find the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around at Princess Auto. Find everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new. And Princess Auto prides themselves on helping you create the ideas in your head and then make them a reality, whether for your shop, worksite, or home. Princess Auto knows you love finding the right tools and right equipment to build or repair things yourself. Hit either of the 2 Princess Autos in town or find out online. You can shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at princessauto.com. Great weekend for some Little Brown Jug. The new double beer is out, a limited edition run available online and at the tap room. They describe it as fall vibes times 100. And you know what might be a great time to do it? If you're not going to the game tonight, pop by the tap room. I know they've got some live music going on tonight. All the delicious 1919 right from the tap, as well as all of the other beers available. And don't forget, that amazing summer variety pack is still on sale while supplies last, either at the tap room or online at littlebrownjug.ca. Every purchase will include a $5 gift card for your next purchase of Little Brown Jug. And BP is going to be the place to be. I know there'll be lots of folks down at the Boston Pizza on Pembina before tonight's game and probably there afterwards, hopefully toasting another big Blue Bomber victory. But whether it's tonight, tomorrow for football and hockey, NFL Sunday with that huge Sunday nighter, the Boston Pizza Lounge is the place to be for sports fans, where everybody gathers together for pizza, wings, and those ice-cold schooners. And, of course, you can order for home delivery as well at bostonpizza.com. All right, we're going to talk to Ken Wiebe in just a couple minutes. Let's get Michael Remis back in here because, remember, we talked a lot about the Bomber game tonight, the CFL. We didn't touch on last night's Thursday nighter in the National Football League, and a big win for the LA Rams and a huge loss for the Seattle Seahawks, much more than a game. The loss of Russell Wilson, who I don't believe has missed a start for the Seahawks, knocked out of the game last night. And lo and behold, I had no idea that Geno Smith was still in the league, never mind the actual backup to Russell Wilson. Geno actually looked pretty good there at the end, but, threw a pick almost on cue. And the Rams get a big win. And for anyone that was with me on the under, maybe the most low-stress game of the betting year so far.
Yeah, I saw Seven Smith and a quarterback in those lime green jerseys, which are made for Thursday night. Oh, were they beautiful? Those are real
Thursday
nice.
Night specials.
But I was like, Seven Smith, who that? Because I was watching on mute. I was like, who's this? Like, I'm trying to think. I'm like, oh, yes, the old Jets QB, Geno Smith. But hey, I said it on here. I liked the Rams -2.5. They covered. I think it was a nice bounce back from them after losing to the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. So watch out for the Rams. And if you had Robert Woods in fantasy, your patience paid off as he had a nice game yesterday.
Did you see the Deshaun Jackson catch? It was about a 55-yarder. He just was out of gas at the end. He literally just went out of bounds at the 11-yard line. He's like, okay, I've done enough. I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe he's still in the league. He's been doing this for a long time. He's just pops in, catches a long bomb. I mean, none more infamous than the one on Monday Night Football where he dropped it before the goal line. We're still talking about it, but there he is, rocking number 1 now? Is that correct?
Yeah,
and
1.
Robert Woods, number 2. It still throws me off, these skill position players with the single digits. Leonard Fournette's like number 7 or something for Tampa, but well done, Deshaun. He's still going, Huss. Still can catch the deep ball, and he did it last game too, so good for him.
Great stat from Mark Sports Video. Seahawks were 7-0 in lime green.
What?
So, yeah, 7-0 in Lime Green. They pulled that out for a bunch of the big primetime games, and they've usually been pretty good in those games, but not last night. I think Rams closed at about a 2-point favorite, but the second Russell Wilson was out, I think you pretty much knew that one was in the bag. All right, let's get to some puck talk. Ken Wiebe joins us now of Sportsnet and the returning Kenny and Rennie show. The boys getting it together right after WST this afternoon, Weber.
Good afternoon, Huss. Great to be with you and your viewers/listeners. Firing up a little season preview action here at 3 p.m. So hopefully some folks can stick around and join us for a little hockey talk. I know it's been an interesting week all around and fun to be getting, these tests have been fun to watch, but much like the players, I believe most fans and media members are ready for the real stuff to begin. Let's get this exhibition stuff in the rearview mirror and get the lid open on the new season.
Exactly. Well, we'll save the season previewing for you and Rennie coming up at 3:00 on YouTube. Guys, make sure you just head over there after we're finished over at the Kenny and Rennie YouTube channel. But let's talk about this final preseason game tonight. No Josh Morrissey and no Blake Wheeler. And what do you make of Jansen Harkins going up in Wheeler's spot? Is this basically a reward for a guy that maybe has had certainly right up there with the best camps of anybody within the Jets room?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it, Huss. We know that, as Mark Scheifele pointed out in his media availability today, we know that there was a brief cameo for Jansen Harkins with Scheifele and Wheeler back a couple of years ago. I believe it was in that road trip in Buffalo. I remember at least one of the games they played together there. This is more of a, resting the captain, I believe, and Josh Morrissey getting a breather as well. But no concerns health related, we know for sure. In terms of Harkins, he has had a very solid camp. I think this is more about opening the possibilities for Harkins to maybe potentially work his way into the mix for that third line right wing job, although I know a lot of folks would love to see Perfetti up there in that first line, but I think that it's a good place for Harkins to be, and it's nice for him to get that reward and maybe a bit of a carrot to play with those highly skilled and elite level players. But I don't think this is an audition for down the road, but I think it is an audition for him to potentially be in that mix because I think this is the best way to put it, Huss. I think Christian Vesalainen has left the door open for that third line job competition to continue well into the season. And we knew it would continue. He wasn't being just handed the job. He was given the first opportunity at the job. And I would also say this, Huss, even though they took the assist off the board, Vesalainen his play was critical on getting that first goal where he made the play along the boards. And, he didn't get the assist, but he drew two defenders to him, and that created the lane for the goal to be scored. And I thought that was one of his better outings of the entire preseason. And it was an important time for him to do that because Paul Maurice basically said the door is ajar. He said, when he was asked about Svechnikov, yeah, I would say that he's in the running. We know now too, Jansen Harkins is also in the running, and we know the safety valve would be Riley Nash potentially moving to right wing on that line as well. But expecting Nash to be the fourth line center out of the gate, Vesalainen to start at right wing. But because Scheifele's out in the opener, there's all kinds of permutations and combinations that could be thrown out in game one, including the potential for 7 defensemen, which is what we will see tonight in Calgary in that finale.
Let me just ask you, because you kind of mentioned, he's getting the spot up at the top, maybe potentially auditioning for that right spot side on the third line. Why wouldn't they just audition him on the third line if that is the case?
No, it's totally fair, Huss. It's a very good question. And here's the other thing. We know Harkins has been used on occasion at center and is a natural center. So although we all expect Paul Stastny to probably play in that role in game one, well, maybe Harkins, if he clicks tonight, could potentially be playing center on the top line just for that one game, situation with Scheifele being out. But I think, like you said, it goes back to it kind of being a bit of a reward. And as we know, nothing is permanent, nothing is set in stone. There could be 6 different combinations used on that line tonight for all we know. We know the only question mark is whether it will be Dominic Toninato or Evgeny Svechnikov in his 6th game of this exhibition season tonight. I think that was still the one question that Maurice had. Gustafsson will not play tonight. He was out with the extras, so was Vesalainen. And then, as you mentioned, Wheeler and Morrissey being out. So one of the biggest surprises for me, Huss, I know we touched on it briefly the last time I was with you, but David Gustafsson not really getting a long look during this camp. And yes, Paul Maurice was, I think that he left the trail of breadcrumbs for us a couple of days ago when I asked about Gustafsson, and saying his path most likely will include, it's not always a straight and narrow path. It most likely will include some time with the Moose. I think that was one of those poker tells, if you will. I think that Gustafsson will be the first, have a heavy role with the Moose, whether it's first line, center, second line, however way you want to distribute it, with Cole Perfetti also being down there. But I would say it's probably a disappointment to Gustafsson, who probably came in with very high hopes. And we discussed it. I thought that Gustafsson was the front runner to nail down that job. And again, this is another reminder of how things are never permanent. David Gustafsson could go down for 2 days. He could go down for 2 months. He could be the Jets' fourth line center before we know it. But the fact that he wasn't given a whole lot of runway with NHL,
why do you think that was?
Established
Because
NHL line mates was one of the big
we
surprises.
talked about this plenty, and you mentioned it, and I guess, not really nitpicking. We haven't even got into the season, but it did seem a little strange that, if you look at everyone and what they were given over the course of the training camp, he really was the one guy that didn't get much of an opportunity to play with some of the quote-unquote NHL guys, even though he's still with the club right now.
Yeah, it's true, Huss. And again, it's not a knock on Gustafsson, I don't think. I think, as I mentioned to you the other time, I think part of it has to do with the Jets know what they have in Gustafsson. But to me, he checks so many of the boxes of the attributes that are required for that fourth line role. He's been in the league for a while. He's played against men both in Europe and in the American League. He was the MVP of the Moose. He's a big, strong guy, mature, strong on the puck. He's a very conscientious two-way player, especially defensively, and he can kill penalties. So to me, it was going to be a natural for him to jump right in, but instead the Jets have chosen to try out kind of guys like Harkins and maybe even Svechnikov in sort of those penalty killing roles. And then kind of Tony Notto kind of came not out of the woodwork, but I would have anticipated him maybe being the 13th forward, or maybe even starting with the Moose. Instead, it looks like he has nailed down one of those penalty killing jobs, and that he will probably be in that game one lineup as well on that fourth line. But again, that he doesn't have that spot nailed down yet, but it's certainly looking that way after a strong weekend last weekend.
Ken Wiebe joining us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Weber, as far as the game tonight, 7 defensemen. Ville Heinola is going to be in there. He'll be getting some power play time. We'll talk about the special teams units in a minute.
Sure.
First off, update on Logan Stanley, and how do you see things working tonight? And what's the goal of having 7 defensemen in, and how do they get run in with each other?
Yeah, we were looking for the clues this morning as well, and Logan Stanley looks like he's shaking off that I believe it was called a lower body injury. Never really got the specifics. We know he did block a shot, but it didn't sound like that was maybe necessarily what had kept him out. He was working with the penalty kill today. I asked Paul Maurice specifically what his plans were with the defense corps, and he said it was just going to be, moving the minutes around. So, in one of their drills, it looked like it was going to be Schmidt with Beaulieu, Dillon with Pionk, and then DeMello with Heinola. But Logan Stanley will also be in that mix, and that's not to say that he won't spend time with his regular defense partner in Dylan DeMello, who we expect him to open the season with. But we don't know specifically how those guys will be used tonight or in the opener. But to me, it looks like Logan Stanley still has won the competition for the 6th job. But we'll see. Heinola has another chance. The old last chance hotel, I wouldn't call it that too, but it is the last preseason game. And I think that Heinola, would like to show well in that last game, whether that means potentially being in the game one lineup, which looks unlikely for now, or as a reminder to Paul Maurice and the coaching staff of what is, in reserve, if you will, whether he starts the year with the Moose or as the extra defenseman, depending on how things shake down with the salary cap gymnastics that Kevin Cheveldayoff and Larry Simmons will be working toward to try to maximize that LTIR pool once Brian Little moves to that spot on the opening day roster. But Paul Maurice has been pretty open this week in saying that it's not necessarily going to be, the game one lineup is not necessarily going to be the regular lineup because of some of those salary cap considerations. And that factors into guys like Perfetti, who are on entry-level contracts, but you have the bonus structure. Some of these things factor in. Some guys are on league minimum. Some, like Svechnikov, still needs to be signed, Huss. He played 4 great games out of the gate. And I think he's been a consistent performer both in the game action and in the practices that we've been watching. But to me, he looked just a touch tired in that fifth game the other night. I thought he was still effective, but he didn't have the same jump that he'd had previously. And I don't think that's just because the level of competition was raised by Calgary's lineup, or even the Jets lineup for that matter. I think that was maybe he hit that, not hit the wall, but like it got to the point of training camp where the legs were a little bit heavy. So I'm curious to see if he plays tonight and what the bounce back level is, but I am still in full expectation that he will be signed to a 2-way contract by the Winnipeg Jets. Whether he's in the game one lineup or not, that we still don't know. And that could be a salary cap consideration. But as a guy who is going to most likely be on a league minimum contract, that should not hurt his chances of being in that game one lineup. So I think he's had an excellent camp. And I think that he's one of those guys, Huss, that, we talked about him as being one of the more intriguing players going into camp. He has lived up to the billing. And I think that he's a guy that can have more than just a fourth line role. And I'm not diminishing the importance of a fourth line role, but I think he could work his way up the food chain during the course of the season, given the skill set that he employs.
Ken, you mentioned the cap considerations, and there are many right now.
Yeah.
This is maybe not very easy, but can you dumb this down? Can you try and give the situation for the Winnipeg Jets as simply as possible? From my understanding, they need to get as close to the cap without going over for day one. Then Brian Little goes on LTIR. If you can, just try and explain that for everyone, because I'm not sure anyone really, really gets it.
It's true, Huss.
Myself included.
It is a complicated document for sure. And the other thing that is sort of complicates matters for that opening day lineup is that Mark Scheifele is unavailable due to suspension, but the full hit still counts. But the Jets will generally be rolling with a 22-man roster this year, Huss. There may be some times where there is the odd paper transaction where one of the younger players on an entry-level deal is just sent down to the Moose. But what they really need to worry about is trying to maximize the LTIR pool. So Brian Little is a 5.291 salary. So the Jets are trying to get as close to 81.5 as they can in order to maximize that pool during the course of the year. So you have certain players that are, the difference between having a league minimum player and say Christian Vesalainen, who is one of those guys, but there's a couple guys that make a little bit more on their ELC. Then a guy like Svechnikov who will be making the 750. The one thing we went into the year wondering about was that if potentially Nathan Beaulieu would be in that Matthew Perreault scenario where he could potentially be waived initially so that, his salary will still count a certain degree above, even though he had been sent down. So and they could have another guy on the roster instead, but because he makes 1.25, there will still be some portion of that counts against the cap, even though he technically wouldn't be on that roster. But the way the Jets composition is right now, it may be more valuable for them to actually just have Beaulieu's 1.25 on the opening day roster as well. Then you don't have to worry about subjecting him to waivers. And the thing that also maybe complicated things a bit was Dylan Samberg being injured on the first day of training camp. So he's not available in reserve if someone were to be claimed on waivers. Then all of a sudden it looked like there was all this depth on the back end. And yes, there still is depth with Declan Chisholm, Johnny Kovacevic, all those guys that showed well. They don't necessarily want to subject another veteran player to waivers either. And we know that Nathan Beaulieu is valued for the intangibles and the things that he brings to the lineup, and he's a Paul Maurice favorite and all of that. But there's the dumbing it down portion is difficult because we don't know exactly. We know there's a couple guys who need to be sent down, and I think being on a entry level deal is going to maybe hurt the cause of one or two of the players. And it maybe even hurt Gustafson's cause in the training camp, whereas I'm not saying he's ahead of Riley Nash because he isn't on the depth chart, but because you have Nash and Svechnikov probably right around that 750 mark, some of the guys that are at 894 or, whether it's 925 when you include the bonuses, there may not be room. There may have to be a little bit of the massaging on the edges of the roster, but generally the Jets will be taking 22, but you can't really roll into Anaheim with a 22-man roster knowing that Scheifele is unavailable. Then you really only have one person in reserve, and all of a sudden somebody pulls a groin at the morning skate, and now all of a sudden you're playing one under. So I assume the Jets will open or have 23 men available for the opener, but there'll be a little bit of shuttling up and down at the beginning of the year. But overall, they're going to carry 22 men, for the most part, and Sorry about the long-winded way of saying that it's a complicated scenario, and it will become more apparent after those it'll become more apparent once those rosters are submitted. But don't be married to the season opening roster, meaning that's the opening night lineup. That is the biggest thing that we can say to folks.
Ken, overall, essentially training camp is pretty much done. This is the final preseason game, and after tonight into the weekend, a couple days off, and we'll be preparing for that first road trip out to California. In your opinion, who are the big winners out of training camp? I mean, who are the guys that made the most of their opportunity and are right now in a much better position than maybe you thought they were when we opened camp?
Yeah, I think Jansen Harkins is Svechnikov is probably the runaway winner, because we didn't know exactly what the Jets were going to get out of him, because as we mentioned, here was someone on the discard pile who was once a 19th overall pick with all this promise and had clicked with Pierre-Luc Dubois with the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles. He's the runaway winner because he basically came in on a PTO, even though the expectation was that there was an arrangement, whether it's in the top drawer or just was a matter of seeing it to believe it sort of situation. But Jansen Harkins, to me, Huss, is the runaway winner of the players that we knew, because we simply didn't know sort of how he kind of not fell out of favor is not the right word, but here was a guy that was on kind of like a ascension that looked like it was out of a rocket ship, where he went from American League player who had to spend a couple of weeks in the ECHL, all of a sudden now he's getting cameos with Wheeler and Scheifele, to being beaten out of a roster spot at times by a Dominic Toninato or a Trevor Lewis or a Nate Thompson. So Harkins did an amazing job of staying ready. I know that last year would have been incredibly frustrating for him, minimal production, but used in a minimal role. So here's a guy who basically the coach challenged him to earn a roster spot in training camp. And not only has he done that, he's worked himself into the mix where he's involved in this discussion for potentially being a third line player by the start of the year. And Harkins is a guy who, he's a prolific junior player. He'd love to be a top six player regularly, but going from extra forward to potentially at least stabilizing on the fourth line with an opportunity for immediate growth, I would say he has shown incredibly well. And I actually love the way that he responded. I mean, to that Blake Coleman hit, it looked like we were watching them quite closely. It looked like they might actually go toe-to-toe when they came out of the penalty box after their coincidental minors had ended. We know that was a dirty hit that related, Blake Coleman's not a dirty player, but it was a bad hit, so he had been ejected accordingly. Well, I mean, it was. But I also will say this. I mean, I like that Blake Coleman didn't shy away from things after. Usually, when a player like that throws a hit like that, and he's lucky enough not to be tossed, he kind of goes into the weeds and you don't really notice him. Like, he still was kind of feisty for the remainder of the game. But I also love that Jansen Harkins didn't back down. He's not known for dropping the mitts. He's a guy who's got soft hands, but he's a competitive guy. He didn't like the hit, and he let Coleman know about it. And, he gave him a cross-check back. So I think that was important. And the most important thing is that he was healthy and not injured because of the nature of the hit itself. But I think that Harkins has shown really well. He's a guy who works really hard in his game. He has skill, and he has the ability to be a player that can be one of those guys providing secondary scoring. And I also love the fact we talked about this last year, Huss. Vesalainen, Harkins, these guys needed to gravitate towards the Adam Lowrys and the Andrew Kopps to learn how to kill penalties, because that's what moves your minutes from potentially 7 to 11. And that, as a young player, it's an important thing. And I mean, if you played hockey for a while, you're a good player. You will have killed penalties at some point, but you have to earn the trust of the coaching staff to throw you out there, because special teams are such an important and critical part of the game.
Now, Ken, I don't really know how this happened because the guy came off a career season last year. He isn't a pending unrestricted free agent, but somehow, at least in the chat, Andrew Kopp has become the new polarizing lightning rod middle six forward right now. What do you make of Kopp's situation, the opportunity that he's got playing with Dubois and Ehlers right off the bat, as well as in the context of the fact that, this is a contract year going into unrestricted free agency?
Yeah, it's an earned opportunity for all the folks that say that Andrew Kopp can't score. Well, all he's done basically every year is improved his totals on those fronts and continues to be one of, if not the most responsible player on the entire team. So to me, it's an earned opportunity. We know there's some built-in chemistry with Nikolai Ehlers from the time where they spent with Paul Stastny in the middle last year. I think he's a perfect player to play with Pierre-Luc Dubois coming out of the gate so that Dubois can just focus in on playing his game. I think he's a guy that would, he's going to need to raise his level once the season starts. We know that's the case. Andrew Kopp has done nothing but generate scoring chances during this preseason. Have they come naturally right away? No, but guess what? Jets fans would rather him convert those chances in the regular season and then certainly into the playoffs than right now. But I think Andrew Kopp's an incredibly confident player. He is, he can play on that role. I mean, if he's on the third line at some point, it just means that the Jets have incredible depth and he is an outstanding third line player. But to me, there's no doubt in my mind that he can be a key contributor in the top 6 for the Winnipeg Jets. And I don't want to hear anyone saying that he doesn't have the hands to play in that role. He has the smarts to play in that role. He has the ability to get the puck to people in great positions, and he has the opportunity to convert. He continues to work on that part of his game. And let's not kid ourselves, Huss. He's a highly motivated individual, because when you're going into a contract year, the Jets matter the most, but Andrew Kopp knows that in order to get paid what he believes he is worth and he has earned, he will need to turn that 15-goal season into 20-plus if you want to get paid the way that a Zach Hyman did in the offseason. And we know Andrew Kopp is comfortable betting on himself, and I would be comfortable betting on him, whether I was a fan, a bettor, or a member of the coaching staff, because he continues to get better and evolve as a player. And he's a guy that's never complacent. You're not going to see Andrew Kopp say, you know what, I punched my ticket into the top 6. It's easy street from here on in. Let me put it on cruise control. That's not going to happen with Andrew Kopp. He's going to take his game to that next level, and he's going to start silencing some of the doubters, in my opinion.
Well, if you had to nail down percentage chance that Andrew Kopp is a Winnipeg Jet a year from now when we're starting next year, I mean, is it 20%? Is it 50%? I mean, because as much as I think the Jets would love to keep him long term, and I think if they had the opportunity to do that this summer, they may have done that. It wasn't the case. We do know that the unrestricted free agency is at the end of the season, no matter what, and unless they sign it. Is there a chance, do you think he's back, or will that really depend on a number of things, as well as what else they would have to do to have the room to sign him?
For sure, Huston, and that's a big thing, of course. But to me, I'd still be comfortable going in a 50+ percentage. I know that a lot of people are not as comfortable on that, and some people think it's 100% chance that he's gone. I'm here to tell you once again, that is not the case. Andrew Kopp loves the situation he's in. He loves being part of the core group, but he wants to get paid. So those are two things that are both can be true, even though sometimes you can't get the same thing accomplished. But to me, Andrew Kopp is willing to be the next Jet to plant the flag in the ground and say, I'm with these guys. I can win a Stanley Cup here, and I can be an important part of that moving forward. What we also know, Pierre-Luc Dubois will need a new contract as an RFA next summer as well. Paul Stastny, no one's trying to push him out the door by any stretch, but is it likely that he'll be back? No, I think it's more likely that he has provided the safety net to get Cole Perfetti ready. So if Perfetti is maybe potentially coming in for Stastny, you have some money that can be distributed, whether that's to both players or some combination of that. Dubois will be getting a raise from the $5 million that he earns. Kopp will be getting a raise. Now it's a matter of getting the numbers to work. By next year, I think Ville Heinola will be a full-time player. So there's another player on an ELC. So now there probably will be enough money to make it work because of the way the contracts were structured for Neil Pionk in the offseason. But it's a matter of finding, Andrew Kopp cementing himself in that top 6 and then finding the money to make it work. I don't think, Andrew Kopp certainly has earned the right to go to UFA status and to hear what else is out there in terms of offers. But I think similarly to what the Jets did with Adam Lowry, I believe they value Andrew Kopp and would like to make him the next piece of the puzzle to sign on long term. Can they do that without knowing what the cap looks like next year? It looks like it could go up moderately, but we don't know for sure. That's what could allow this to stretch on a little bit longer and maybe potentially even into the off season. But to me, Andrew Kopp is a better than 50% chance to remain with the Winnipeg Jets because of his investment. I think I called it sweat equity in my off-season column when Andrew Kopp did sign. He's invested a lot in this community, into this program, into the organization. And he wants to reap the rewards, Huss. And you can understand, you want to reap the financial rewards, but the last thing you want to do if you're Andrew Kopp is end up on a team, down the road, a non-contender, but you made an extra $500,000 or $1 million, and then go and watch the Jets win the Stanley Cup. Again, I'm not here saying and projecting the Jets are winning the Stanley Cup, but they're a contender again. So to go to a non-contender just to make an extra $500,000, I don't see that being worth it to Andrew Kopp. But he wants to go somewhere where he's valued, which he is valued here. And he wants to get paid, and he wants to continue to be productive on a contending team. So that's why I believe there's still a better than 50% chance that Andrew Kopp remains within the organization.
All right, we mentioned Pierre-Luc Dubois. We'll be talking a lot about PLD and how he looks, but right now, give us the Ken Wiebe Dubois-o-meter on his camp so far and how he's looking with Ehlers going into this final preseason game tonight.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that he looks healthier for sure. To me, he looks more powerful, but I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois is looking forward to the regular season games beginning. I believe, I think he's adjusting to his spot. I know we touched on the special teams earlier. He's adjusting to a new spot on the power play where it looks like he will be this high slot presence on that unit with Mark Scheifele and company. I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to really settle in nicely with Nikolai Ehlers and Andrew Kopp, but he's still kind of finding his way in the preseason format, which is not surprising. All players are finding their way if you're a veteran, and as Paul Maurice so aptly pointed out, a lot of the times those guys are just trying to get to the finish line so they can start the real games. So I'm on record as saying this. I will say it again, Huss. I expect Pierre-Luc Dubois to have an excellent season. What that translates into, his game goes well beyond the numbers, but I do expect him to be a guy that can score 20 goals. I do expect him to be in that, maybe 60 plus point range because he's playing with Ehlers. That will allow him to probably pick up some extra points. And as Brendan Dillon kind of joked about, you can maybe leave the puck behind him behind the net and watch Ehlers go end to end and find your way into getting a couple of secondary apples. But I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be a force. He's going to be a physical force. He's going to be tough to play against. And part of what Paul Maurice talked about in the Adam Lowry line shifting its responsibilities was that Pierre-Luc Dubois and Andrew Kopp and Nikolai Ehlers, they will be giving an opportunity to elevate their minutes by going head-to-head against the other team's best on occasion. And I think that is an area where Dubois can really thrive. Everyone talks about that series against Toronto where he went up against Tavares and Matthews. And he can do that on a consistent basis as being a two-way force. And I see him playing that role with the Winnipeg Jets this year and having an outstanding bounce back.
Kenny, great stuff. Just one more thing on tonight's game. Who's going to be in the Wheeler spot? Just quickly on the power play. It looks like Hanel is going to be in where Josh Morrissey was on PP2 along with Nate Schmidt. Who's in the Wheeler hole in PP1?
It's a great question. Actually, Wheeler was working in that spot today, so there were no hints given there. Cole Perfetti was killing penalties. Could I see an option for Cole Perfetti to slide in there? Perhaps. Maybe it also could be Harkins, I guess. And it also, you know what, the other thing, Huss, they could put Kyle Connor back in his regular spot in that one-timer spot as well and maybe just change the dynamic a little bit there. So I don't have a great answer for you. Paul Maurice did not provide any breadcrumbs or clues on that front, but I'll be watching very closely as you and everyone else will be.
Well, what did you think about Morrissey and Schmidt on PP2 together? It was interesting to see Morrissey actually playing down low at times and with that rotation getting Ehlers back on the point and Josh in past the hash marks.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good spot for him. I know some folks just think it should be 4-1, 4 forwards and 1 defenseman, but I think Josh actually can really flourish there. I think he's worked on a shot in the offseason, and I like him in the shooting slot, and then having Nate Schmidt up top being the distributor. I think he can really do a nice job there. And as Morrissey pointed out, he's not used to having the cross ice feed coming from that angle where Ehlers, when he has the spin around at the top where he gets that speed going when he either shoots but you got to be ready, right? Everyone's looking for Ehlers to shoot, and he has adopted that shooting mentality, as I wrote about today at sportsnet.ca, but he also has that great passing and vision that he can get it across, and Morrissey admitting himself the other day that he wasn't ready for a few of those pucks that were put on a tee for him, but I expect he'll do a nice job in that role, and we'll continue. There's another guy too, Us. Talked about him a lot this year. Josh Morrissey is going to have a great year. Nate Schmidt is going to help him dramatically, and he's in such a good headspace. I really think that Morrissey is going to be a really solid, rock solid defender for the Winnipeg Jets, who's going to be a two-way force, and then we'll see what happens from there on in. But I'm expecting a big year from Dubois and Morrissey both.
All right, Wiebe. Follow him on Twitter at Weeb's World. You can read his work on the Winnipeg Jets at sportsnet.ca. And of course, coming up 3 p.m. right after we're finished up, you and Reynolds getting going with another edition of Kenny and Rennie. Give a quick plug for that, Ken, on your way out.
Yep, join us 3 p.m. On our YouTube channel, or click on my Twitter account, or you can also hit us afterward on the podcasts, wherever you get your favorites. But looking forward to seeing everybody there. Thanks, Huss, for having me. Have a fantastic weekend and a tremendous finish to the show here.
Right on. Happy Thanksgiving, pal. Thanks so much for doing this.
Well.
We'll talk to you next week when it counts.
Looking forward to it, my man. Take care.
All right, there he is. Ken Wiebe joining us. Kenny and Rennie coming up top of the hour as soon as we are finished up here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're going to stay talking hockey. The digital gambler Andy MacNeil's in the house, going to join us to discuss his VSiN 2021-22 NHL betting guide. Before that, I want to thank Not AutoCorp for their amazing support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Finished up the Milt Stiegel TV spot shoot. You'll be able to see that, I'm sure, during some NFL football sometime soon. But if you are looking for a vehicle, heck, even if you just want to kick some tires, pop down to Not AutoCorp. The work that they've done inside the building is absolutely staggering. Not quite as staggering, though, as the incredible vehicles on the lot. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? And, of course, the Winnipeg Car Lab is open right now, doing full corporate wraps for vehicles, striping, tinting, rims, and so much more. You can follow them on all the socials at Winnipeg Car Lab. Of course, end of the show today. Canadian Club, our official whiskey and the official whiskey of the Blue Bombers. Got a great giveaway. Got our first co-branded CC Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie to give away. We've got an I Love Rye package and more. And of course, we'll be at the game tonight. And I know many people will be hoisting a CC and Coke or a CC and Ginger and cheering on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, they got the Jim Beam Stillhouse there, the Brugal Rum Hut. But the CC is available everywhere in IG Field. So enjoy a couple tonight at the game. And of course, you can pick it up at your local Manitoba liquor marts as well. And a big thanks to DQ Nick. Nick came by today. I fueled up for today's show with one of my favorites, the Ultimate Grill Burger, and a couple chicken fingers. An amazing, amazing meal. But it's all about the ice cream. Couple frozen treats of pizzas making my way, some ice cream sandwiches. It was a nice delivery from Nick. You can do that as well by popping by any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. Still time for a great taste of summer with the blizzard. And of course, if you do want to order a cake, just hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll take your order and have it ready for you quick and easy at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQ locations. All right, don't forget, big marble race, end of the program before we turn it over to Kenny and Rennie. But right now, let's welcome in Andy MacNeil from VSiN to get ready for the upcoming season, discuss his 2021-22 NHL betting guide. Andy, what's going on? How are you? You know what, Reem? I can't hear Andy. I think he's got we got a mute on.
Andy has himself muted.
Sorry. Yeah,
Perfect.
That's my bad. Sorry.
What's going on? Welcome back to the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Oh, fired up for the season. You know, got a chance to take in a couple preseason games. Obviously been focusing on a lot of football right now, but we are just about to the starting grid for the 82-game season. And it's a perfect time to have you on because spending a lot of time going over all of the prop offerings, season bets that are available right now. And you've put it all together in one betting guide. Just quickly, before we talk about the Jets and some of the other teams, give us a bit of a plug on what is in the 2021-22 betting guide that you put together with VSiN and how people can get it.
Well, you can get it at vsin.com/subscribe. It's $9.99, which I think is quite a good price, to be honest. There's a schedule tracker in there that breaks everything down. I'm talking rest days, back-to-backs, 3 and 4 nights, etc. And all of the projections included, you know, and then there's analysis on all 32 teams. So a pretty comprehensive guide, something that I kind of market as like a companion that you can take around and shop and help, you know, as you shop for prices in the futures market.
Well, and one of the things I'll give you, I mean, there's a lot of work that went into this. I mean, it really is a great piece. But there's also, and I get this all the time, because whether it's on the Lock Shop or here, we're often talking about betting, we're talking about lines and the difference between futures and in-game bets. And the one thing that I think will be really helpful to a lot of people just getting into this space is, basically a glossary of what everything means. So really helping people that maybe are just getting into the space sort of walk through all this new information that might be a little foreign to them right off the bat.
Yeah, well, I think, in general, futures markets like the Stanley Cup futures, if you go through the guide, you'll notice that I don't really touch on Stanley Cup futures whatsoever, because at this time of the year, those markets have been up since the end of last year's playoffs and are pretty mature. You're not getting very good value for your money at this point in time, unless something drastic happens with an injury or a trade or something like that, let's say. But season point totals, division odds, things like that there is some value there. Point total markets specifically are off. The sports books are off by roughly 7.5 points on average over the years. So they're beatable is I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think for the casual bettor that's just trying to get into this, it's a great time to start. Maybe you don't have enough time, on any given day to really dive into a game. But you have to be able to find some time, in the week leading up to the season to place a couple of bets that can, give you some rooting interest throughout.
No doubt about it. Fill us in on what goes into making these projections. I mean, all the information. I mean, I know it's sort of like a special recipe with everything, but I mean, what sort of stuff are you considering that you take into consideration when you're putting together your predictions, which historically have been very, very strong, Andy?
Yeah, it's it's a mixture of things I've learned that I can spice in, like you said, but in general, I'm not doing anything much different than a lot of the other people in the space as far as using analytics to build models and whatnot. As far as my game predictions go, it's actually a pretty basic model, and I don't think it requires much let's say sophistication to really make something valuable when we're talking about the NHL, at least not now. I mean, player and puck tracking is coming, and the sports books are going to get that data before we get it. So right now the playing field is pretty level, but I guess once they get their hands on that and start learning a few things that maybe we don't know about the game, it could get a little bit tougher in some respects. But sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's something I'm really interested in, waiting to see this information that going forth. I mean, what do you think that we'll get? I mean, whether it's players or whether it's the books, what information do you think will come out of that stuff that may be of any benefit when, we're talking about these sort of things? Yeah,
I don't think anything. I think, right off the bat, it's going to allow sports books to create all sorts of different markets, like, things that we couldn't measure before, like, where's the next goal going to be scored from? It'll be easy to verify that, right? Things like that. I think you'll see things like that offered up pretty quickly once they hit the ground running. And this is just me speculating on things. I don't have any inside information or anything like that. But I do think it eventually it could pose a challenge for sports bettors. The sports books have some pretty smart people working for them, and they'll probably have first dibs on that new data, and the public won't be privy to that. So it's something to be concerned about, I guess, for someone like me.
Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, to see what we can get out of it. I mean, the more information, the better, I say. But it's just would be good to get it as well as having the books and everyone get that, so we're on an even playing field. By the way, getting a lot of love for the hat in the chat, Andy. That is an absolute beauty. You picked the right show to wear it on.
Well, of course, I had you guys in mind when I bought about 20 hats, to be honest. But this is a great logo, and I've been on the hunt for one of these jerseys, like the Heritage Classic, I guess it would have been. But they're tough to find at this point.
Well, we'll have to hook you up with our boys over at Royal Sports. They've certainly got a lot down the street, a great sponsor of ours. Yeah. So let's talk about the Jets right off the bat, because one of the things that the preview does is break down each and every team, odds on it, some of the off changes. A pretty broad question, but thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets going into this season with the pretty significant offseason additions of Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt on the blue line. That was seemingly the Achilles heel of the Winnipeg Jets. That the top four defense certainly seems like they are way ahead of where they were at the end of last season going into game one next week.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's if you're going to like anything about the Jets heading into the season, it's the fact that they've got an improved blue line. And, this team is one of the most intriguing teams, in my opinion. The fact that they don't really grade out very, very well by, expected goals, in a lot of ways. But they end up being a team that scores more than they get scored on, right? So, and it's been consistent over a large sample. So they're an intriguing team to me. I think there's probably something here that a lot of people are missing that rely too heavily on stats or analytics. Sorry, but I like this team, and I think they're a dark horse, let's say, but I wouldn't call them sneaky, because I think if you've been paying attention the last few seasons, they're not sneaking up on anybody. This is a very good hockey team. I believe you can get minus 135, which I know some people might think seems kind of silly to lay juice or lay chalk, in the, in a futures market like that. But to make the playoffs, I think that should be closer to minus 175. Let's just double check here. I have it up. Winnipeg Jets to make the playoffs, minus 182 is a fair number, in my opinion. That's what I think the line should be. So quite a bit of value at minus 135. I don't like the Minnesota Wild. I think they're going to take a step back this year. Dallas has some problems, particularly like how many games is Braden Holtby going to play, and how is that going to work out, right? So I think the Jets are a team that could really push Colorado in a lot of ways in the Central Division and make it interesting. So we'll see.
Well, it's funny. And I mean, obviously Coolbet's a big supporter of ours, and we always use their numbers. Jets, I was looking last night, minus 130 to make the playoffs. So certainly based on what you've said, I mean, some real good value. And again, it's a fun bet to make, because every time the team wins, I mean, your goals are the same thing as the team is, to get in there and make the playoffs. And based on the numbers, the Jets, do you have a theory on this? I mean, I just have sort of found that, because they're a small market team, they don't have a long historic fan base, outside of this area. A lot of times the Jets have been slept on, both individual players as well as the team in specific odds. Like earlier this summer, we got on the Jets 50-1 to win the cup. And again, we talked about cup bets. I mean, it's one of those things. But when you looked at the teams that they were around, the neighborhood they were in, it just didn't make sense. Now it's in and around 50, but as well as the props on players have always seemed to be diminished a little bit. And, kind of finding those spots of teams that are slept on a little bit can be an area where you can really get some nice value when you're making wagers.
Yeah, I mean, you did the right thing by looking for that Stanley Cup bet early in the summer and not sleeping on it, right? I mean, I was more talking about not really focusing on that market in late September, early October, because things have kind of been set. The contenders, the dark horses, everything's kind of been figured out by this point in a lot of ways. But yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I mean, I just got into hockey cards again recently a little bit, and I've learned that, there's a little bit of a value problem when it comes to Winnipeg Jets cards. I mean, nobody wants to buy them. I don't get it. But yeah, a small market team. Maybe they fly under the radar a little bit, but in today's day and age, I think it's pretty hard to fly under the radar. If they're as good as I think they could be this year, then people will wake up to it pretty quickly, I think.
No doubt about it. The total for one of the real popular bets is just an over under on number of points for the season. Jets on most books are listed at 92.5. Minus 110 on both sides. It sounds like from what your projections are, pretty solid lean to the over on that, Andy.
Well, yeah, so average points, I've got Winnipeg at 95.1. So a little bit of an edge there, but I think minus 135 to make the playoffs is a better bet. I think they're pretty comparable bets, but I like that bet better if it comes down to it at the end of the season. I'd rather not be thinking about how many points they have to get, right? So
yeah, exactly. Just get the job done, be playing in the postseason. One of the other interesting ones that we talked about, and there's and maybe of all of the lines that have been out, this one moved the most. Just 3 weeks ago or so, when we were looking at all the Winnipeg futures, the Jets had moved from 50 to 40 to win the cup. They were 20-1 to win the West, and yet they were 21-1 to win the Central Division. Now, I realize Colorado was a big, heavy favorite, and there's a reason for that, and all of the other teams have a pretty significant number. but that one's gone from 21-1 to 13-1 over the course of the last few weeks. And I think that would indicate a lot of people are going, wait a second, this doesn't really make sense. This is a team that, if you want to go off of Colorado, would have probably as good a chance as any other team in the Central to be challenging for top spot if it got there.
Yeah, so anybody who grabbed that, 20-1 or 21-1 got a really good number. I give the Jets a 6% chance of winning the division. Doesn't seem that great, but that's, roughly 15-1. So you've got value there. At 13-1, not so much, right? So you probably want to pass on that one right now.
At players, Nikolai Ehlers is the talk of the town. Everyone's so excited to see what he can do in a full season back with fans, considering what he's done the last couple of years. A pretty lofty number for goals in the season at 28.5. But you'd be hard-pressed to find someone around here that doesn't think he's a lock for 30 goals. Any thoughts on Ehlers and maybe any of the other Jets when it comes to individual performances this year?
To be honest, I didn't dive a whole lot into that this season. I've been busy with the actual. I've got some pretty cool stuff planned at VSiN this season that involves a player prop pricing app called the Propagator, and it's on a game by game basis, looking at every game, every player. So I haven't thought too much about futures this year, as I've been trying to launch that and get that up and running to be ready for the start of the season, which is coming pretty quick. But no, I'm in the camp that sees Ehlers around 30 goals. But if you're talking 28.5, you said.
Yeah, 28.5 is the number that we're seeing.
Yeah, and probably laying a bit of chalk there. I mean, on those bets, there's typically pretty big margin with those things because they don't like to get beat on those. But yeah, no, I mean, I'd probably lean on passing on something like that. I know it's boring, but that's where I'm at.
Well, what about Patrick Laine? His number is 19.5. I mean, I know he's in Columbus. I know they don't have any centers, but this guy scores 20 goals in his sleep, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty low number. And you've got to like the prospect of Jacob Voracek and him kind of teaming up and really, being, let's say, like given the freedom to play the way they want to, and then things could really work out for him. So yeah, I lean over there for sure.
You mentioned Minnesota, and it's funny because, in the Lock Shop, we were doing our first show when it came to futures, and I was loving the Jets over 92.5, and the Minnesota number, I think at the time, was like 98.5 or something like that. We were on the under, so we're on the same side. But, maybe outside of the Central Division or, through everything that you've done, is there a team or two that sort of sticks out to you, at least as opposed to what's out there on most markets, that you're either particularly high on or particularly low on, as opposed to what we're seeing posted?
I'm pretty close on everything. I think I'm a little higher on the Islanders than some places as far as, their odds of winning the division. I think my fair odds are about plus 250. So that's, anything at 3-1 or better would be a good bet in my opinion. I believe you can find 4-1 out there if you look, but there's I guess Calgary maybe, but I've seen a lot of other people now since I've kind of started to dive into what other people have been saying, which I kind of ignore until I'm finished doing my thing. I've seen a lot of people kind of coming around on Calgary, and I do, at 12-1 or 13-1, I think that's not a bad bet to win the division either. I know the Oilers, obviously are the upper echelon if we're looking at everybody below Vegas, but anything can happen, and I think that price should be closer to 7-1. They've got the prospect of having pretty good goaltending, full season of Daryl Sutter, a pretty decent offense, and the only thing that kind of stood in the way of them making the playoffs last year was their inability to figure out the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, that is still a mystery, and it still is a thorn in the side of many people down in southern Alberta. I have to ask you about the Kraken. I have been stunned to see where they have been listed, and maybe this is just a Vegas hangover of how bad everybody got burned on the preseason predictions of Vegas and, what they did in the first year. But first of all, how challenging was it to put together predictions for a team that has never played a game yet? And where are you at the Kraken in what I think most people would agree is a pretty weak Pacific Division?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit challenging, but I just kind of approach it the same way. I looked at what they had in the three areas: goaltending, defense, and offense, and kind of summed it up and came up with a pretty average slightly below average team rating. The offense leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, Yanni Gordy's not going to be in the lineup for I don't know how long right now, but it's that he's arguably their best offensive player. I know they got Jared McCann who could have a good season, but it's you just look at that team and you wonder where the goal's going to come from, and they were priced around or listed at around 94.5 points, and now they're down around 92.5. I think it could have been higher than that earlier in the fall, but I mean it's tough for teams that are built that way. Yeah, they've got great goaltending. Yeah, they've got great defense, but if you're up against Connor McDavid and you're locked in a 2-2 game and there's 10 minutes to go, or it's probably going to go the other way more often than not, and the disparity, the difference in skill is offensively is just going to probably hold that team back.
Andy, great stuff, man. Always love having you on the program. Can't wait to get after it on the when the season gets going next week. Again, it's the 2021-22 NHL betting guide. It's available at VSiN.com. Fill us in on what you've got coming up heading into the season and the content that you're going to be doing for VSiN and how people can catch more of what you've got going at VSiN this season.
Yeah, so head on over to VSiN, check out the subscription page. I think there's a lot of different options there for people to take in, but I'm going to be providing pretty comprehensive hockey betting content and looking at game lines and totals and whatnot, but focusing a lot on player props this year too, because I think that's a great market for specifically recreational bettors to dive into. The limits are a little bit lower, but the edge can be a lot bigger, and there can be a lot of good bets to make. So definitely have some plans to do some live streams, hoping to get those off the ground next week, but if not, the week after, and take it from there. But I think things are going to develop as the season gets underway.
I'm very much looking forward to the propagator and everything else that you've got coming up this season. Andy, thanks so much for doing this.
For sure. Shout out to Range Hockey, who is the people behind the propagator, and they've partnered with VSiN. Just want to fit that in there.
Well, perfect. Well, we'll look forward to having you back on board. You can tell us more about it, and hopefully we can get some winners for a Jets game coming up this season.
Totally. We can do some screen sharing, I think, too. That would be something cool. I'm thinking that.
Sounds like a plan. Follow him, folks, at Digital Gambler, and check out all of his work over at VSiN.com. That is our guy, Andy MacNeil. Oh, cannot wait for the season. Of course, we do have probably many of you getting into maybe a pool or a fantasy league draft final couple days before the season gets going early next week. And for the Winnipeg Jets, it's go time Wednesday night, a 9 p.m. Winnipeg time start. No Mark Scheifele for game number 1 in Anaheim, California against the Ducks. All right, let's get Remis back in here because we've got a couple things to do before we finish up. We will try and finish up by 3 o'clock so everyone can head over and join the gang over at Kenny and Rennie. Remo, let's maybe start getting people in for the marble race at the end. We can kind of talk about the Dale Hawerchuk auctions while we load this up, and then finish it off with what should be an awesome marble race and our first ever CCWST co-branded hoodie to give away.
Yeah, that's a good plan. So I will hit go on this thing. We did exclamation marbles before. Is that what you want to do again?
Sure, it's nice and easy. Everyone knows it.
Nice and easy. All right, let's go. So it's going to go, and I disabled the, would like tell people in chat every time they got entered, it would just flood the chat. So I got rid of it. And so I think it should be good to go in a second. And great talking with Andy. Love his background. Got some nice jerseys. Got a compliments on the hats. I'm looking forward to that propagator because I'm more of a DFS guy, daily fantasy, than straight sports betting. So anything you can have that can predict player performance in a game, I'm here for that.
Excellent. Okay, so folks, just before, and Remo, maybe if you can get the Hawerchuk info, you can fill us in. So these are the hoodies that would be given away. WST, and then with this great shoulder patch, shoulder logo, if you can see this here, of Canadian Club, official sponsor, official whiskey of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So, and we do have a few sizes for you big dudes. We do have a few double X's. We've got XLs, we've got larges, one medium, I think. So that's sort of the sweet spot of it. And then we do have some t-shirts as well. But today, first prize, you'll get the first hoodie from the batch, limited numbers of all of them. Second prize, we'll put together an I Love Rye package from Canadian Club. And third prize will be a pair of tickets for the ice game on Saturday night. And again, do want to thank James and the gang over at Canadian Club. Looking forward to seeing them at the game tonight over at IG Field. Probably have a CC or two, but great support of ours and just phenomenal prizing for the marble races that we've had so much fun doing with everybody here. So again, if you're just popping in, ! marbles, you're seeing everybody pop in. We'll get everyone. There's DQ Nick. He's feeling lucky today. Get in there, dude. ! Marbles. In about 5 minutes or so, we'll close it off. We'll throw it in and we'll finish off with a marble race. But Remo, fill us in on this Dale Hawerchuk auction. I know a lot of Jet fans' interest perked up when they heard what the Hawerchuk family's planning on doing for charity.
Yeah, so this is on classicauctions.net. A number of items from the Hawerchuk family, personal collection. And let me fire this up right now. And I see a lot of people typing ! Marbles. Just a reminder, if you are taking the time to enter the contest, please also take the time to hit that thumbs up button, 151 likes, and subscribe to the channel. We're helping you guys out. Maybe you can help us out. Doesn't cost us anything. Yeah, we're in. What are we at? 55, just over 5,500 subs. But check out this auction, Huss. You got some spare cash lying around here?
Wow. The minute I saw that Campbell Conference jersey and the Canada Cup jersey that Hawerchuk wore, the famous goal with Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky, I mean, that is... Someone should buy that, frankly, and stick it in like the Jets Hall of Fame or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, that should be on display somewhere here in Winnipeg, of all places, if we could get it.
The Hawerchuk 87 Canada Cup jersey with the letter of authenticity, going for 4,500 right now. The Jets 89-90 game-worn captain's jersey, 5,100. Campbell Conference, 2,100. So I agree with you. I mean, some of the stuff here, 1986... World Championships Team Canada ring, like $800. You got some more like 86 World Championship jerseys. I love this. This is my favorite jersey. I have the Western Conference one behind me, but this Hawerchuk 1997 All-Star Eastern Conference jersey when he's with the Flyers.
Number 15? It just doesn't look right.
862. You don't think?
No.
Who was 10 on the Flyers? Like John LeClaire, I'm guessing at that time. So yeah, you couldn't grab, but some nice like rings in here. I just like looking at this. What's
that bowl in the middle? Is that the Molson Cup trophy?
That's correct. 81-82 Molson Cup trophy. $862 right now. So there's some cool like 30th goal of the season, 81-82 with the Jets puck, $491.
I should buy that and use that as like my serving bowl. I could eat out of that thing for the entire season. The Molson Cup.
If you had like cereal or popcorn out of the 81-82. Man, the Molson Cup was awesome. I have the poster at my parents' house of all the Molson Cup winners. They gave it out, I think, at one of the last seasons of the Jets. And yeah, the Molson Cup I thought was pretty, wasn't given to the most 3-star points.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
that was Cup 3 stars. You know what was interesting? They gave the same amount of points for first, second, and third every game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So sometimes you'd have some weird winners. Like a guy would be first star 17 times, but someone was a star 20 times anything and ended up winning the Molson Cup.
I think they have something like that now, but the Molson Cup will always be the one that I grew up on. And we can look through some more of this stuff. Sorry for people on the podcast, but it's on our Facebook page, the link to it. I would recommend. I mean, this QMJHL 79-81 Cornwall Royals jacket, I think is pretty cool. Here in the middle. 242. I thought that was cool. The bronze medal from the 86 World Championships, 324. But then you got the equipment pants from the 87 Canada Cup, 525. These 91 Canada Cup gloves. But yeah, some museum or something should buy these, or if you got a lot of money and you're a collector.
I'm going to try and buy the Molson Cup bowl, and that's going to be
You're going to do it?
I'm going to eat out of that thing for the entire season. Ice cream, like get some DQ, put it in there, make it. I never make spaghetti, but I will make it just so I can serve it and eat it out of the Molson Cup. I think that would be the most plus EV move for a single dude would be to have I need a big bowl too, to be honest with you. I don't have anything good, so this would take care of a lot of problems. It might be a little more than I would normally think about paying for any sort of kitchenware.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very versatile, and it looks damn cool too. But man, those jerseys at the top. I saw someone mention, hopefully TSN GoFundMe for Huss's new bowl. Yeah. I would love to see True North, if they can, get in on some of these pieces and get them into Jets Hall of Fame, Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame, something in and around here. Because, of course, and by the way, I think we mentioned Dale Hawerchuk Way, the signs are officially up in time for hockey season. I really do commend them, what they're doing to remember the life and contributions here in Winnipeg of the greatest Jet.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Walking around. I mean, I hadn't been downtown for a couple of years, or now, because I had no reason to go. But in the last few weeks, you didn't even leave
your house for 2 years.
Yeah, in the last few weeks, I've gone to a couple Jets games now and had to go downtown. So you walk around and you see the True North Square. It's pretty cool, and then you see the big sign. It's like, oh, this is where Dale Hawerchuk statue was going to be, and they got a real accomplished person who's done a lot of these to make that statue. So it's going to be an elite thing that you can go and look at. And I've been to stadiums at other cities, and they always honor the past with statues. The Griffey one in Seattle, and at the White Sox games, they got statues all around the concourse. So I think this is the start of something really cool.
It really is. So yeah, you can check that out. Hit our Facebook page if you want to link to all of the Dale Hawerchuk memorabilia that is being auctioned. Did it say when the auction closes, how much time everyone has?
I think it's like October 26th. Let me just double check. Like if you want this jersey, let's just click on it. Sorry, I got to bring it up.
Well, what about the bull?
Oh, you want the bowl? This one ends in 18 days, 7 hours.
Okay.
So you got time here on this jersey. Look how beautiful this thing is.
We'll stay on top of this. We'll do a weekly check-in to see what the prices are.
We should do a Friday check-in on this
Absolutely.
auction.
Absolutely. All the Hawerchuk merch.
The bowl's 862. We can look at this. These are beautiful high-res photos, too. There it is. Look at that font on the Dale Hawerchuk.
Old school. This
is so awesome.
That's the Play All Sports font 1982 version now.
This is the inside of the bowl. You sure you want to eat like cereal out of there or what?
Well, you know what? We'll do a good cleaning of it, or we'll put something in the middle. I still think that there's a way that we can make this happen. All right, let's get ready. Let's get ready.
Take it to DQ. Put it under the soft serve machine.
They'll figure it out. All right. It looks like everyone. Last call! Exclamation mark marbles if you want in. We've got 3 prizes to give away. First place today is going to be the new WST CC co-branded hoodie. Second place, got a little I Love Rye package. Third place, pair of tickets for the Ice tomorrow. I believe they're playing PA tomorrow over at the Ice Cave. Saturday night game. A little Saturday night hockey for the Ice. Looking very, very good. Undefeated so far this season after that big win, 2 wins last week against the Wheat Kings, and then beating Connor Bedard and the Regina Pats earlier this week. Remo, how are we looking for it all?
I'm trying to load up all the names, but my internet is thankfully it works for the stream. Okay, we got, a lot of people in chat. 115 entries. This could be our biggest race yet. So.
Nice. 115 people. Everyone, if you're here, we got 260 right now live. Do us a favor, hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit the red subscribe button. There's no cost to doing it. You'll know when we're going live if you want to turn on the notifications. Otherwise, when you go to YouTube, you'll see our videos pop up. And one other thing you can always do to help out, even if you're watching after the fact, just pop in and leave a comment. Hopefully a positive comment at the end. That always does help grow the channel as well as the likes. And obviously, first and foremost, having you join us on a regular basis through subscribing, hitting that red button. So we've got over 100 people in today's marble race. That is awesome. We've got our first ever CC Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie to give away, and they turned out amazing. And we do have multiple sizes right now. At least that might not be the case as we go forth, depending on who wins and what size they need. But we are in a pretty good spot. And you know what? We've also got a DQ cake to give away. So let's do this. I'm going to do we've got 1, 2, I guess I already said third place. So if you're in 4th, you'll get a DQ cake. So this is an absolute festival of winning today in the marble race. To review, first place, the Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie. Second place, the CC I Love Rye package. Third place, pair of tickets to the ice tomorrow. Fourth place, a DQ cake courtesy of our guy, Nick, over at the Nick and Nicky DQ group. All right, Remo, how are we looking?
Okay, am I closing the entries right now? Do you want me to do that?
Oh, yeah, close it. Yeah, it's 5-2. We got to
go, because Kenny and Reddy are starting up. So I close the entries at 117. I am going to copy them, so I have a list of all of them. Give me 1 second. Okay, copying. And then I'll get the names. And, oh yeah, and do you know if our Winnipeg Sports Talk DraftKings contests are full? We do run contests.
You know what? I'll check that out while you're loading it up.
Yeah, every week.
So tonight, I'm glad you reminded me. I still have to do my CFL lineup. I've got my spot.
Yeah, we do run contests.
Upcoming contests. There is one spot left for CFL. We've got 39 of 40. So if anyone is not in yet, if you would kindly grab that last spot, that would be great. And as far as the NFL contest beginning on Sunday at noon, 6 spots left, 44 out of 50. So get on over. If you haven't played with us, it's in league. Search Winnipeg Sports Talk. Get in there. And if you haven't, we can send you a link if whatnot. Maybe Remis. Well, first we'll get the marble race going, but we can throw the link in the chat. But yeah, 1 spot left for CFL. Would love to get that filled ASAP. And don't forget to get your lineup set before kickoff tonight between the Bombers and the Elks. All right, how are we looking for marbles?
I got the list saved. I had a copy and paste error. I'm going to be saving it in the appropriate folder. Hold on. I got to do this all manually. My apologies. Marble names, October 8th. All right, let's load this thing up. And then we can pick a nice track. Am I right?
Get in there, Taylor. Get in there. I want the spot. It's there waiting for you. We need your return to the DraftKings pools. CFL,
there's
one spot.
There is one more, yeah. So, all right, we're golden.
39 of 40.
39, yeah. So I got my lineup set. I don't know. Kelvin McKnight. People are talking about him, Huss. That was our thought. It's like, okay, he's in the lineup. What's his price on DraftKings?
It's like 3,400 or something.
He's 34. He's 3,400. So, okay, 117 names. Perfect. We are golden.
Taylor, get in there. Use your phone. Don't let the internet get you down.
Okay, we're golden now.
All right, let's get the marble race going up. Again, thanks to Canadian Club. Great to have them on board with us. Of course, their official spirit and official whiskey of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You can pick it up throughout IG Field tonight. And we will have some of that great Canadian Club as part of the I Love Rye package, which is for place number 2. So to review, first place, hoodie. Second place, I Love Rye package. Third place, ice tickets for tomorrow's game. And just added, fourth place, a delicious ice cream cake from Nick and Nicky over at the Nick and Nicky DQ group. All right, Remo, fill us in. Oh, Frosty.
Yeah, I don't know what I just did, but we're on this track. It's called On Thin Ice. So sounds like there could be some eliminations here, some over-the-top rope action. I'm just going to hit start because we're running up against it.
Good luck to everybody. We've filled it in. It's our Friday marble race here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, and the whole gang is in, over 100 marbles. Let's see what happens. Nice start by Les Thompson, hockey fan. Larry the sports guy's in the mix. Hockey fans there.
But yeah, top right has the active leaders, of course. Going down this track, a lot of loop-diddy-loops. There's hockey fan.
Hockey fan coming out of the gate first, along with Craig.
Oh, man, look at this.
Craig Sapansky. Whoa, Bardo. There's Bardo again. What up, Bardo? How was the game? The Jet game the other day. Bardo, we had an impromptu race. Running Man and Bardo won the tickets. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks again to Mike for supplying those tickets for us. All right, a bit of a bottleneck here. We've got 2 levels. Comet is down. Dino Apostolopoulos in the front right now. Larry the sports guy in the mix. Larry and Nicole going at it. Oh, here we are into the snowflake, the rotating snowflake. Larry getting through first. Schickster's in the mix. Oh, Jeff Kabilis. Kabilis making a late run right now. No, they're as close to eliminations. Who do we have here? Kabilis is in first place right now, it looks like. Or at least that's what's saying. No, Larry the sports guy. Schickster. There's Larry. Schickster. Now it's about getting down into that hole first. Who is it going to be? It's Schickster. Schickster takes it. Jeff Kabilis second. M. Sheldon for the tickets, and the DQ ice cream cake goes to, I think it's Renee Dandino. What? That was a great race. Great race. And it's always good to see many of our regulars getting in there. Schickster, I think that's the first time Schickster's won. Yeah. And Schickster's been in here on a daily basis. And Kabilis is a bit of a WST legend. Maybe he won't be doing fake wrestling moves to other people at the end of the show in the chat. He'll be too happy over his big win. M. Sheldon, congratulations. You've won the ice tickets. You're going to have to send us a DM or an email at winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com just with your email so we can send you the tickets. And Renee Dano, do the same thing so we can get you set up with an ice cream cake from our friends over at Nick and Nicky DQs. What a great way. Wrench, Keith S., Larry the sports guy, Joe from Winnipeg, Nicole J., and our girl Taylor Yule Miller, all top 10 performers. But what a race we had today. Great course. Bardot and Kate Wolf are still trapped. They can't make it down. Here comes Bardot. Yeah, Bardot used all the luck last week or earlier this week, I guess, in winning the Jets. And Kate Wolf just refuses to come down. Finally. And there we are. The official winner and the final results is Schickster. So, Schickster, Kabilis, you can hit us up on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter. I'll get you set up with the I Love Rye package. Schickster, we're going to need a size from you, and we'll get a chance for you to come by and pick that up. As far as Renee, let us know. We'll get you set up to pick up a DQ cake at your closest Nick and Nicky DQ. And number 2, M. Sheldon, you let us know where you want us to send those tickets and enjoy the ice game on Saturday night. Remo, what an awesome week it's been, but we're done. Summer, fall, it's all over. It's either off season or on season, and come Tuesday after Thanksgiving Monday, we'll be live counting down the hours to the Jets dropping their puck on the upcoming season Wednesday night in Anaheim.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And just, I got to say, what an incredible finish there for fourth place. There were like 5 marbles dropping in that cup at once. But we'll have the weekend. I got my fantasy draft on Monday in my home league. And then we'll be counting down until Wednesday when the Jets take on the Ducks. I can't believe it's finally here. It seems like we've been counting this down since they made those big trades for Dylan and Schmidt. We've been waiting for this moment, and I am super pumped to actually have regular season games. I've enjoyed the preseason. I've enjoyed the discussion on who's going to take whoever's spot. But we will have game action after the weekend. Very exciting.
I won't really pay too much attention to the hockey game tonight. Obviously, we're going to be at the Bomber game, cheering on the blue and gold, hopefully to 8-1. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure the IC guys will get after it tomorrow. You'll have Kenny and Rennie right now. And then we're back at it. Jets season officially on next week here in Winnipeg. We do have to wait another week to see the team back here for the home opener. But game 1 of 82 is Wednesday night, and we'll be back live after the Thanksgiving long weekend at 1 o'clock here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks to all of our sponsors, Culligan Water. Don't forget, they've got that $9.99 special for home rental equipment for 3 months. Find out more, 694-5180 or over at 1200 Sargent. Manitoba Battery and Royal Sports. The Blake Wheeler collection of hats are all there. 100% of proceeds go to Cancer Care Manitoba. Be a great thing to support. And the hats are really nice. Those are all there at Royal. Our friends at Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Not Auto Corp, Canadian Club. Cheers again to Schickster for the big win. And of course, Nick and Nicky and the Nick and Nicky DQ group and CoolBet Canada. All your odds available at CoolBet, and use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. If you want more info on the CoolBet and betting talk, go check the Lock Shop. Dusty and I'm now 13-4 against the spread after the win last night with the picks I've given out. Very, very hot. Hopefully I'm not jinxing myself going into the weekend. But anyways, we had a great lock shop this week. All your football betting information is there. Find it on my Twitter, Dustin Nielsen's Twitter, or just search Lock Shop on your favorite podcast. Otherwise, folks, maybe we'll see you at the game tonight. No matter what, have a great Thanksgiving with the family and join us back here to get going for Jets season next Tuesday after the long weekend, 1 o'clock right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have an awesome weekend and thanks for joining us.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.